Let's add to the conversation then David Lewis, and he is with the Corruption Watch body. And David Lewis, good morning to you. Thanks for making the time to speak to us. In your view, how should people interpret what is going on right now? You have arrests that took place last week, and today it's the seizure. It's the seizure of assets belonging to this businessman, Edwin Xoli, who is also part of this particular case. How should South Africans digest what's going on right now?
Well, I would have thought that they would have been very pleased with what's going on right now. You know, there's been an outcry for the last year or two about the NPA not acting quickly enough, and they have said all along that apart from having inherited a pretty bad organization, the new leadership have said criminal charges, and to make a criminal charge stick, you have to be very careful and very thorough about your investigation. And they seem now to be at a stage where they believe that they concluded their investigations and that they're ready to go forward with prosecutions. And this is exactly what the South African public have been asking for a long time. And so I would imagine they would absorb it as one might absorb some really pleasurable incident.
Yeah, and talking about the public digesting this, the amount of pressure that is on the prosecuting authority, do they get some breathing space at least? And do we know for sure that the cases that they are now taking before the courts are indeed solid cases that are going to be taken through to their logical conclusion?
Well, I'm pretty sure they're going to be prosecuted, if that's what you mean. I'd like to think that I have little doubt about that. I mean, whether a prosecution succeeds or not, is difficult to assess until you see what the quality of the evidence is. I would imagine that they have pretty strong evidence. I mean, the VBS Bank thing, which I see today, it's rumored that more people will be arrested there. It has been the subject of very thorough investigation already. And so I would imagine that they should be entitled to feel confident about that. This asbestos story has been around for a long time, and I see they're expecting more senior people to be arrested as a result of that, and as a result of cooperation by some of those who have been already arrested. And so, on that score, the South African public need to understand this is maybe not the end of the story as far as the investigations do. I mean, in these kind of crimes, in these kind of conspiracies, inevitably amongst the first lot of people arrested, and there are some quite senior people who've been arrested, amongst the first lot of people who are arrested, there are inevitably going to be some who are going to enter into plea bargains with the prosecutors and give up information on some of those more senior to them in order to get lighter sentences or to get immunity from prosecution altogether. So I think there's probably still a lot of way to go on some of the investigations, but the quality of the evidence will improve as the case proceeds.
And just linking to what you've just said, David, about the outcry over senior people, whether it be senior politicians in particular, it was interesting listening to Hermione Cronje, who leads the investigating arm in the NPA, and she was talking just this weekend, and I was listening to her. And as far as Ace Magashule, who was the premier of the Free State when all these contracts around the asbestos scandal is concerned, this is what Hermione Cronje had to say. And she says, and I quote, "We ought to be strategic about the prosecution approaches when the prosecution approaches these cases. Sequences is that you ought to charge whoever, and those essential elements are going to have to be important." So there's some kind of sequencing that they ought to sort of go through about who is charged with who, so that they don't make a misstep here. Can the public be patient and give the prosecution the leeway that they are asking for, or is it asking too much?
No, I think the public should be patient. I think that I know that that's difficult to ask, because they've been patient for a long time. Well, we've all been impatient for a long time, and we're entitled to feel impatient. But I think that what has been done over the last week or two, the last while actually, the last couple of months, should at least persuade the public that the NPA are active, extremely active actually, and now they should wait. I mean, when Advocate Cronje says there's a sequence, they'll get to their ace magashules, but they need to get to them with ironclad evidence, and they'll get that evidence to the extent that they haven't already got it, because frankly his fingerprints are all over the asbestos deal, and they'll get more evidence from the people they've already arrested.
All right.
And so what mustn't happen is that they mustn't go to court, ask for postponement of the postponement of the postponement while they conclude their investigation, and then find out that they haven't got sufficient evidence. That mustn't happen. If that happens, I think hell will pay for it.
Yeah.
They'll be held to pay for it. So that's what they've got to avoid, and that's why the sequences go up the value chain, as General Lebeya said this morning. And when you get to the end of the value chain, you'll see who you are left with. But in the asbestos case, it wouldn't surprise me at all if it was Ace Magashule.
All right. David Lewis, he is with Corruption Watch. Thank you very much indeed for that analysis and input.